Okay, so we're here for our live Q&A for homeschool parents, Back to School Made Simple. Hopefully you had a very lovely summer and now you're getting back into your school year. I'm Ollie Holdener. For anybody who doesn't know, I was raised in education. So my dad raised me in education, public school, private school, and my mom was really big into Special Olympics because she adopted her baby sister with Down syndrome and raised her like my sibling. And that was my life. And I loved it. I loved it. I began speaking at teacher conferences at a very young age in high school because of my dad. He wanted the teachers to hear from the students about programs that they were starting in the Silicon Valley, in the Bay Area, in the San Francisco Bay Area in the 1990s. So that feels like a very long time ago. But not much has changed. And I think that's why many of us now are homeschooling. So even with all the correct preparation and experience with a variety of different types of educational models, I felt like I knew what I was getting into, but I learned quickly how lonely of a lifestyle homeschooling can be. And that's why I'm here now. I don't want moms to feel lonely, and I don't want them to feel like they're homeschooling and they're always behind with their kids. So if that is a problem, that is something we can fix. I started homeschooling with my godmother well before I met my husband. And this was also in the 1990s, at the same time that I was doing the teacher conferences with my parents. My godparents were homeschooling their own kids, and they were labeled like not nice names, but they were very connected as a family. And the dad was one of the first to work from home. That was so weird. A long time ago, that was very, very unusual. But they did very well. Their kids were happy and very connected to mom and dad. And I always saw them and admired how they raised their family. So I knew what I wanted for me when I started. And it was an easy yes for my husband, I have to say. It was a very easy yes for him because he was a product of private school. And he felt personally, not everyone, but for him personally, he felt like it was a waste of time and money. So for us, we thought, let's try homeschooling and see what we could do. And now we're here 9 kids later. We have 4 boys and we have 5 girls. But enough about us. Now we're going to talk about you. Let's talk about how we can get the most out of our scope and sequence. So typically what we do for homeschooling is we first decide, yes, we're going to do this thing. And oh, yeah, sorry. Okay. I just needed to move my mouse. So first we decide we're going to homeschool, and then we're going to get stuff like all this stuff. And let's see if we have one. Yes, I do have one right here. Maybe that's not a good example of one. Here's a better one. The books will come with a scope and sequence. And this is a lot. This is like a big, big book. This is for my daughter, Christina, who's in 1st grade. Look at how big the teacher manual is. This is the teacher manual. This is heavy. You could use this instead of weights at the gym. And all of these things are independent of each other. None of them talk to each other. It's funny when you write curriculum. So for anyone who doesn't know, when you write curriculum, the product itself has to stand alone. And it has to not only stand alone for the American standard of education, but also for other countries who are culturally different. So there are many things like this book, for example, that's a Saxon math book that can be sold anywhere in the whole wide world, that maybe an American mom would read and feel overwhelmed because it's too much information. Yes, but if you were using the same book in another country, things that we take for granted, maybe they don't know. So Saxon doesn't know what you know. Saxon also doesn't know your kids. Saxon doesn't know that Christina is doing this for math and that she is doing this for her writing. Because this is an IEW. This is an IEW product. It's for writing. But look at this. I posted this the other day on Facebook. I'm not sure if you saw it, but these lessons are starting to overlap, which is an appropriate thing because she's in first grade. She's in first grade for writing, she's in first grade for math, so her lessons are overlapping. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to do the lesson for writing her numbers. You see how this is blank? She didn't do it because she did it here. And they're all like that. I'm an IEW certified teacher. It's something that costs me money. I have no IEW affiliate links. I like it because it teaches language arts with the clarity of math. And because I have a personal experience with many years in Special Olympics, I tend to get friends who have kids with a diagnosis who come over either to my house or to my church, and we homeschool the kids together for IEW and IEW only. And I like to do that. I think it's fun. I think it's nice to give my mom friends a break, especially if you have a kid with a diagnosis, because those kids typically have pretty stressed out, maxed out parents. Their parents don't trust that other people know what to do with their out of the box kid if something happens in a classroom, for example. So I noticed that a lot of my co-op kids were getting very bored with the IEW curriculum. Anything that you buy from IEW that has a spine is written for someone who's IEW certified. And if you try to read the scope and sequence, it will say that on the first page. Typically, the first page is super boring, so we skip it. And then we try to go into what looks like, oh, this is the schedule. These are all the things that I need to be doing. Yes and no. Yes and no. So this is where your scope and sequence can feel so overwhelming. I'm looking to see if I have another one of my kids. Let me see. It might be, oh, here we go. There we go. This is a different IEW book. This is for my daughter Genevieve. She's in junior high. And this is what a typical scope and sequence looks like for your books. It's like the whole year in one shot. And it looks like I need to pay attention to this. Well, actually, what you need to pay attention to are all the pages before with the teeny tiny print that tell you, don't do everything that's on this page. Every single curriculum provider does this. They will literally tell you the first thing, don't do everything that we are sending you, and then they send you everything. Every single idea, every single little thing that you could possibly do. But again, it's because this has to stand alone. Now, my kids at my co-op were starting to get really bored of all of these books with the spine. So then I had a year of writing curriculum, which was very fun for me, but I realized, okay, here's what's happening. When you write curriculum to give to a mom, and then she can do the lessons with her kids at home, you have to be so overly specific about what you're doing. It would be like if I wrote directions for you on how to drive your car or how to change a diaper. You almost don't even realize every little single thing that you do. And then when you write it down, it seems like so much. But when you're doing it, it's like second nature. So that's kind of really what the scope and sequence is. Do you ignore it? I don't think you ignore it, but maybe it looks visually very intense, and it's not. It's not. It's really not. Here's the other thing that I tell parents.
Carlos,
Hi there.
ya restaban a los
Especially when I'm teaching in a co-op, I will tell the parents, look, there are so many chapter books that go inside of the scope and sequence, and I tell them every time, it's here for you if you want it, but there's no consequence if you don't read the book. And that is something that a curriculum provider will know that maybe you won't. That some of the things in the book don't even come up in the lesson. It's just a nice little extra thing to have. They try to be really specific and tell you that. Most of us who are purchasing curriculum don't read the fine print. It looks like this is all I need. And that's not really, I need all of the fine print, and it's kind of boring. It's kind of boring to read all the fine print. But just have peace of mind. Have peace of mind that every single curriculum provider is almost identical. They give you so much information and they tell you, please pick and choose because all of these things will overlap. Just like in Christina's case, where her writing book and her math book are repeating lessons. Most of it repeats. Here's the other thing that happens. Let's go back to Genevieve's book that has the full scope and sequence like this. This is my daughter Genevieve's book for junior high writing again. What isn't clear is at the very beginning of the year is a review of the book before. And the very end of the year is a little preview of the book that's coming. So not only do you have overlap between the subjects themselves, you also have overlap in the lessons, the books themselves. So I have a book here. Let's see. I have a book. It's right over here. Let me grab it. I will show you. Again, I'm an IEW teacher and I don't sell for IEW. I just know their books really well because I've also written curriculum for the IEW method. So I know this like the back of my hand. And with this book, this is IEW, Wonders of Science. The skills for this book towards the end of the school year are going to be the same as this, which is the next level at the beginning of the school year. So the curriculum provider levels will overlap. And again, if you have a kid who's maybe 6 years old, the math book and the writing book and the reading book, they're kind of overlapping a little bit. So what does that mean? That affects your pacing quite a bit. You don't necessarily have to do everything in the book. What if you're feeling behind? I would say probably if you're feeling behind, it means that you don't know that that is how the books are written because you're probably not behind. You're probably exactly right. Let's see, my moderator. So let's see. I just want to make sure really quick. Okay. I had, typically the questions here that I got on this one for the scope and sequence again were, I'm feeling behind. So if that's you, hopefully just getting a little insight onto how the books are written is going to help you. Now, the next one is about lesson planning. So with lesson planning, that's a tricky one. Most moms who are homeschooling who feel like they're drowning have asked questions for today about, I'm feeling behind, what do I do? Or my student isn't doing this that my other kid could do. And so all of those feelings or all of those problems that we want to fix, we normally go to the lesson planner to save the day. That I would say might not work. And here's why. Here's why. The thing about the lesson planner is just like the scope and sequence, the lesson planner doesn't really know you. So this is what I use for my family, for my kids. This is where I teach my kids in the house. This is where their school books live because I can lock out the toddlers and that saves me the gray hair. This is still my natural hair color and I want to hang on to it as long as I can. But with my lesson planner, here's what I noticed with academic lesson planners. They tend to see, I have disappeared all of mine. I normally don't use them anymore. I love them and I don't use them. You know what? I think that's not true. I think I have one right there. Let me grab it and I can show you my lesson planner. So your lesson planners, this is a homeschool teacher planner. It can, if you want to see, I filled it out. Yes. So that was fun. It can work like a brain dump. I would say one of my favorite things, this was a class that I taught. So notes from a class that I taught for some students. It was an IEW course for young entrepreneurs, how to write for business. Here's another, kind of like a to-do list. And most of them are blank. If you're feeling like you love your lesson planner, then I would say absolutely change nothing. For all of the questions that I received, I would say if you're feeling like you're behind, then this is going to be like your scope and sequence. You're looking at this and there's too much here. Too much doesn't mean you need to dilute your lessons or you need to give your children a lesser quality education. No, that's not what that means. That means your lesson planner doesn't have enough spots for the things that are most important. So I'm pretty vocal about being critical of lesson planners because there are not big spots there for mom's health and the marriage, which are the number one and two things that have to be good and solid in order for you to begin homeschooling. Homeschooling is something that doesn't exist for the children if you don't have mom and you don't have a good marriage, because then mom's going to have to go back to work. And we don't want that if you want to homeschool. Most moms who work from home tend to outsource a lot of things, so they don't really have issues with the lesson planner. And that is one way to homeschool your kids if you're working from home. But for the majority of people who are having trouble with their lesson planner, it's this right here. I'm going to show you. Let me find a blank month. Because like I said, I use mine like a big brain dump. It has this. It has all these spots that are open, which makes you feel like you owe the planner an explanation, right? Like I owe you something there. I have to write something in there. And that's not the truth. This is very, very benign. Nothing happens. Just like I said for IEW level B, when I look at this class and I take a look at the scope and sequence and I see the list of chapter books for this class, what if I don't like them? Well, nothing happens if you switch them out for something else. So I would say the same for your lesson planner. What if you don't fill anything in some of the blanks? Not all of the blanks, but some of the blanks. What's going to happen? Probably nothing. Probably nothing. Your lesson planner can just be a nice place to brain dump. My personal favorite is to look at my lesson planner like each month is its own year. And I will take my purse on a date to the coffee shop with this guy and no kids and just brain dump. I think that's very, very good. It's good to get things out of your mind. It's so good and so healthy to write things down, but it can really work against you when you treat it like a to-do list, that you have to do this. This isn't your family budget. And I think a lot of us who are stressed out about our lesson plans, we treat it like that. Like it's a budget and something really bad's going to happen if I don't do what I wrote down. So maybe get a little more comfortable with this style, or some moms just, the family calendar. We're going to talk a teeny tiny bit about that in the next couple slides. So that's our lesson planner. What about homeschooling myths? This is the number one thing. Before I move on to homeschooling myths, are there any questions in the chat? Are there any questions about scope and sequence specifically, or homeschool planners that we should address before we move on? Okay, good. So for homeschooling myths, this is a big one. This is the one where most of the questions come in. And the questions are really about other people who are critical. So homeschooling myths are a funny thing. Once upon a time, this lifestyle was available only to the rich, the wealthy, or the elite. Now it's available for you and me. Your critics are typically people who have never been homeschooled themselves or would never choose to do it for their own kids. And if you dig a little deeper, those people never had it as an option. In the 1970s or the 1980s, even in the 1990s, many parents didn't know it was legal. So I have a really fun story to share about my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law had 3 kids. She sent them to her local public school for elementary. And then when they were in high school, she really wanted them to go to the private Catholic high school so that they could easily get into college. And that was a very nice and respectable thing to do in the 1980s. So that's what she did. And she told me after I'd been homeschooling for many years that if she could have, she would have homeschooled, but she didn't know anybody who was doing it. It wasn't that she's against it. It's just like she didn't know that she could. And normally people her age, she's in her 60s. Normally people her age didn't know when they were parents that you could even do that. And I think that's most people. I think if you're going to raise your children in a different way than your in-laws did, there's a little bit of stretching of the family legacy there. And, you know, just like when you go to Pilates, sometimes the stretch or the flexibility isn't the most comfortable thing. So if we look historically, homeschooling is not new. It was a very weird way that it disappeared for our generation specifically. So almost all of us who are homeschooling now or want to homeschool now, I mean, we just, our parents don't have that. They don't have the perspective. They can't appreciate it because I always say, look at the opposite. If you are raising your children, maybe in New York in the 1940s, and your child is walking down the street, going to a school where the children are learning how to read, they're learning how to write, and the boys go to the boys' bathroom, the girls go to the girls' bathroom. You can make dinner while the baby's napping. Would you say yes to that? I don't know what I would say because I do not even have that option available to me. So when it comes to homeschooling myths, I notice that the people who are the most happy never address the myth. They don't even talk about it. They really just show. So anticipate this Thanksgiving if your friends and family are coming over and maybe they don't agree with your homeschooling lifestyle. You can be so content and happy with your thriving marriage and your thriving homeschool that you just have 0 minutes left at the end of the day to have that conversation. Because here's the thing about criticism and homeschooling myths, they're simply bubbles in the wind. They will burst, they will pop. The performance of public schools right now are really supporting you in a very loud way every day. So maybe I have some parents or I have some in-laws who don't agree with homeschooling. You know, if CNN or who else could it be? I mean, once upon a time, it used to be Rush Limbaugh, but he's passed away. You know, these really big names on TV are telling you that schools are failing, and that is not getting through to your head. I know that there's nothing I have to say that's going to change your mind. Here's the other thing that we know about critics. It's never about homeschooling. It's really never about homeschooling. If you have someone in your family who is against homeschooling, they don't understand what it is, or they're very confused, they're worried that you're going to fail and they want to help you, then that person is going to bother you. That person might be a grandparent who says, I'm going to be there every Tuesday to help you because this looks like too hard for you to do by yourself. That is someone who is truly concerned about homeschooling. They're very concerned that you're alone and they're going to come and they're going to support you and they're going to help, and then conversation over. And we love that person. We could kiss her feet. Oh, if that grandma existed for all of us, we would be oh so happy. That would be lovely. But mostly these are people who have ignored their own health. Maybe they feel older than they are. Maybe they don't have a fun time paying attention to their own marriage or their own retirement. So they're maybe a little bit bored. They have too much time on their hands, so they're coming in your direction. Or it's Tuesday and you're wearing purple and your mother-in-law is not happy about it. There's so many reasons why people are critical about the decisions that you're making with your spouse for your children, have nothing to do with homeschooling. So the number one thing that I saw today, especially on Facebook, and most of the attendees for this are from Facebook, is just that. So many negative Nancy's. What do I do about negative Nancy's? I say, let Nancy realize on her own that she's wrong. Because if you try to talk to her or talk her out of her own ideas that she's clinging on to, Nancy might not ever come around. If Nancy is insisting that the sky isn't blue, the sky is pink and purple polka dots, no matter how much you try to prove Nancy wrong or prove yourself right, you're really going to exhaust yourself. So I would say when it comes to homeschooling myths, maybe just live out the proof that they're wrong so that when they're wrong, they won't hide from you. Because, in the end, especially if you're homeschooling and your spouse is not so sure, you do always attract more bees with honey, but at the same time, they're going to realize faster, and you're going to get what you want, which is peace for your ears, faster if you're simply showing them with your joy that they're wrong. And I always manage that with time. So how do you do this? When there are too many myths about homeschooling that are not correct, and there are too many people who are not sincerely looking for the truth, they're just simply arguing in the family, and they're very, very noisy. Just get super duper selfish with this guy. Because the truth is, you don't need to have 9 kids like me to be very full and satisfied with your day. Both of those things, full and satisfied. I know that the biggest jump is going from 0 to 1. So when you have no kids and then you have 1 kid, your calendar gets full, like fast, so fast. Now your calendar's full. And you have the temptation to feel overwhelmed. The second thing is satisfied. When you take care of your own health and your own little baby and your own marriage, you're kind of out of time. Especially if you really focus on being that woman that your husband fell in love with, right? You're out of time. So if someone is sending you 100 text messages about why homeschooling is bad, sorry, I don't check my phone. I don't have time to check my phone. Like multimillionaires and CEOs and so many people who are just living their life and minding their own business. That's really how you win. When it comes to homeschooling myths, if you feel like homeschooling myths are holding you back because of your own fear, that is where podcasts really are your friend. And it's quick to see when you start doing it yourself that these things are not true. Now, let's talk about things that are true. Things that are true are self-doubt, lack of support, and misbehavior. So self-doubt is a tricky thing. Self-doubt is really putting an idea in your mind that you can't do something that you can do. So if you're Michael Jordan, you can touch the rim of a basketball hoop, right? What if someone came to Michael Jordan and said, you can't touch the rim? He would never, ever hang out here in the land of self-doubt because he knows it's not true. Same for you. What if someone, Lauren's name is at the top of my list here on my view for the Zoom call. If Lauren introduced herself to someone and she said, hi, my name is Lauren. And the other person said, no, it's not. Your name is Sarah. We're going to pity this person. Lauren's name is Lauren. Lauren is not going to have any self-doubt about her name. She knows the truth of her name. So always think about the truth of something when it comes to self-doubt. If it's new and unfamiliar, that's very different than self-doubt. You can homeschool. And a funny and sad fact, I think it's sad, a sad fact about public school, they have proven this, in order for your children to stay par with their public school peers, mom at home has to do nothing. That's something they've been saying for years, since I started homeschooling, actually. They say if you want to beat the public school, you do minutes of math and reading every day. If you want to be on the same level as the public school, you do nothing. And I think if you have ever met someone, if you've ever met someone who is unschooling, this is where they're so happy. They're so happy to hear this. It's really, it's, okay, Kona can go in the boys' room. If you have any self-doubt at all, just remember that your kids are going to learn. It's almost impossible for them to learn. For most of us, the question is, what are they learning? Not that they can't learn. You want them to learn good things. And many times we look at this as I have to put good things in the child's path. You could do that. You could do that. You could also just take away the bad things. So think of this maybe like dinner. You could serve a healthy dinner and then they can choose. You could also just keep away the Halloween candy. Both work. Okay, so when it comes to self-doubt, sometimes being a little more active is going to give you the comfort that you need, that you can do this, even if you feel doubtful. Now, lack of support is a very, very big reason why homeschool moms feel like they're failing. Most of the lack of support comes within the family. So this can be a spouse. If you are wanting to homeschool and your spouse is feeling like you shouldn't. Or I know many military moms, they want to homeschool, spouse agrees, he's not there. I also have a friend with 5, and he's the fireman. I have a friend with 2, her husband's the fire chief. And here in Texas, where I am in Fort Worth, there are so many pilots, and they're gone and they're traveling, things like that. So the lack of support can be here. There's like a lack of emotional support that kind of keeps you up at night, so you're thinking about it, or it can be a lack of physical support. Either way, support is very important. Many people find that co-ops are where you get that. Co-ops can be good and bad. Co-ops can make you feel more busy because now there's a schedule. And it can feel like your homeschool is interrupted. My co-op is on a Thursday. Thursday for me is my Monday. So it takes a while to get used to that. You start the lesson on a Thursday, and then you do the homework over the weekend, and you have a couple days. So it's, these are things that happen, but it really is just a question of what isn't working for you right now. And then the way that you solve it is going to be, one of these 3 ways. The misbehavior thing, I think a lot of parents feel like the behavior is why we cannot homeschool. So let's talk about that. I had 2 questions about that one that I wanted to talk about right now with all of you. One question came from a mom on TikTok who said that her son, she wants to homeschool her kids. There are 5 of them, and like the 13-year-old isn't doing the dishes. And then there's the other mom where we have a 3rd grader who can read and won't read. So first, let's start with the big guy, the 13-year-old. If you have a 13-year-old who won't do the dishes, there's a lot going on there. My first question to her, this was a conversation that we had outside of this Zoom call, but pointing in this direction. So I'm not going to share her name, but she said, he acts like an angel for other people. And I was like, oh, good. So he can do it. And if your child can do it, they will do it if you mean what you say. So that's pretty much it. Do you mean what you say? I really like, if anyone would like to, Catherine, maybe you can put this in the chat. Tom Davis. Tom Davis is my hero when it comes to behavior problems. Tom Davis does have his own children, but he's really famous for training animals. He used to live with wolves, and he's this really brilliant man in New York, in upstate New York, and now very famous. What I like about him more than Caesar Milan, if anyone remembers The Dog Whisperer, I don't know if you ever watched that show, but what I like about Tom Davis is that he gives you the confidence to be very calm as the parent. I didn't. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna look at it. No, go ahead, tell me, because then everyone will see it. Oh,
What is the worst? What if the worst critique is yourself?
oh, the worst critic is yourself. Okay, okay.
Meaning public schools, private schools.
Okay.
What advice would you give?
Okay, so let's finish up here about behavior because Tom Davis is so important. I have two pit bulls. I've never owned pit bulls before, so I'm going to use myself as an example because what I learned with the pit bulls is I went to Tom Davis as a dog trainer, and I learned that if you mean what you say, that will change your world. So it doesn't matter if you're the mom who had the question about the 13-year-old won't do the dishes. It doesn't matter if you're the mom who is a third grader who can read and won't read. It doesn't matter. So this doesn't work when they're two. Because 2-year-olds, they're a whole different thing. But we're not talking about the 2-year-olds. When we're talking about troubleshooting your homeschooling, none of us are talking about 2-year-olds. They are so sweet and so fun, and they will make you crazy, and they grow so fast. So normally with a 2-year-old, all you have to do is wait. For a short amount of time, that feels like forever. But with a school-age child who is having problems with behavior and there is no diagnosis there, mean what you say, and it'll fix everything. Now let's go back. Mom had a question about self-doubt. Yes? Okay, let me see. I'm on the wrong one. Okay, what if your worst critic is yourself? That's actually not bad. You know what that means? It means that you care. But the problem is you care about everything. So if you take this to an extreme and you are really struggling with this, in the future, your kids will start lying to you. And it's not because they're bad. And it's not because you're bad. They're going to start lying to you because you care about everything. And you react to everything as if everything is important. It's kind of like going back to the lesson planner here. So typically this is for the melancholic moms. Melancholic moms care so much. These are people who easily get to heaven. They're always dressed beautifully, appropriately. They don't get divorced. They put so much love and care into details. And just like they want to fill in every single thing of the lesson planner, and they want their lesson planner and their reality to be identical twins. And kids don't really do that so much. So the number one thing that's going to help a melancholic is nothing to do with academic exercise. This is so busy. You are the type of mom who is going to benefit for 1 to 2 hours a day of exercise. All of your whole life and soul is up here in your head. So when you're able to maybe get on an exercise bike or take a class at the gym or go on a walk every day, your temperament is most likely melancholic. So you're attracted to beauty and you're attracted to order. And sometimes homeschooling kids makes you feel like you are parenting 30 hours a day and nothing is beautiful. Everything is chaotic. Nothing's in order. So you doubt yourself. None of those things are going to be fixed, which is kind of funny. It's kind of funny. You have these long lists in your head of things that are going wrong, and you are your number one critic, and you're comparing yourself to the public school, or you're comparing yourself to the private school, or you're doubting yourself. So none of those things need your attention right now. Let them all be there. Instead of trying to fix them, go over to the exercise. Melancholics, if you are truly a melancholic, which I'm going to guess you are, melancholics care so much. You almost have to like get yourself hot and sweaty every single day so that you can finally go, yes, okay. And then the kids are going to say, Mom, and they're going to come at you with something. And you're going to be so tired when they start coming at you. You're like, oh, it's fine. If you want to increase that feeling of it's okay when things go wrong, even if they don't go wrong, when things don't go according to plan. See, if everything went exactly how you write it out, you would love that. So melancholics are very, very good and useful in the world. Melancholics are so good for beauty. Think of the big cathedrals in Europe. Think of artists, true artists who are producing beautiful music. They're typically not calm. So there's nothing wrong there. There's nothing wrong with knowing that this is your temperament and using it as a strength. This will bless your family oh so much. And the irony here is that maybe you don't know it, but all the other moms are looking at you saying, oh, her outfits are so beautiful. Her children look gorgeous in every single Christmas card because you care. You're going to make them match. You're going to make it like you you are going to you're going to get your kids to show up on time, and your car's not going to be totally disgusting because you care. You care about everything. But at night, that doesn't make you feel so great because the entire day is like stuck in your mind. That is really what's, going on for the melancholic mom. I would say you have to start right away really getting tired physically. It's almost like a non-negotiable because all of your joy is going to be eclipsed by this right here, this self-doubt. So I wouldn't address the self-doubt. It's not going anywhere. You're just going to use up your time in the day so that you don't have any minutes left over for self-doubt. Does that make sense? I hope that helps. Was that the last question? That kind of plays right into our next slide, which is mom's health. So mom's health is really, really important. So important. And again, why I do not like how lesson planners are made. Same way I don't like really how the scope and sequence is made by the curriculum providers. But the lesson planner is really, really going to set you up to fail. I do not hear people talking about this enough, so I wanted to talk about it right now. Lesson planners, really great for a brain dump. So great for, these little bits of information that I don't really know what to do with, but maybe I should write it down and save it and don't throw it away. And it's just going to sit there. But the big boxes in your lesson planner really are not going to help your homeschool to thrive. They are going to wear you out. So for mom's healthy habits, I would say number one thing, if you can, if it's at all possible, please read or listen to James Clear, the book Atomic Habits. I think we've all heard of it. I know of multimillionaires. I've heard them speak and they say, I read this book once a year. I assign it every year to the homeschool students at my co-op who are in high school. It's just such an important book. It's so important to remember. And if you don't have time for the book, you can listen to the podcast or there's also a YouTube. James Clear, with his book, Atomic Habits, did not invent a thing. All he did was remind us that a 1% increase in growth is all you need for a happy life. So if you're homeschooling and you would like it to get better, you are looking at a 1% increase in mom's health every year to meet your goal. I think the thing that we don't talk about as homeschool moms is how easily it is to crash your adrenal glands, to lose sleep. I talked to a mom yesterday. She's sleeping 4 hours a night. And poor thing, she's beautiful. She is a beautiful woman and she looks like she's sleeping 4 hours a night. And it doesn't take away from her beauty, but it makes you a little sad. Like I talked to mom and dad yesterday. And yes, there's a lot going on in the family. There are no babies. There are no babies. She's not up in the middle of the night with a baby. She's doing other things that are keeping her very, very, very busy. And, maybe some of those things we can do when we're retired. Or we can, I don't think that you necessarily need to squeeze your entire life into 1 year. So that's something that's always helped us. My husband and I have been planning our homeschooling for 23 years. We started talking about it on our first date, and we have a list of things that we wanted to do, like a bucket list in our life. And so far, we've been meeting all of those milestones. Having 9 kids was a surprise. We were hoping to go for 5. That was what we thought was ambitious at the time. And we're almost doubling that number. So that's a very big surprise for us. And we're learning. And maybe that's good. Maybe it's good that not everything is going exactly according to plan, because it's a little more of a adventurous story for us in our marriage. But, in the end, there's absolutely nothing wrong. Everything that you want to do on your list, yeah, you can and you will get to it. In the order that the lesson planner has it laid out, I would say probably not going to make you feel that satisfaction at the end of every single school year, or when you go to bed to feel satisfied. When people are eating healthy and they're able to move and they're able to relax, this is a very maybe at a very Aristotelian style of life. So if you go way back to ancient Greece, where philosophy is born, and to consider how were these people educated, even Socrates himself, we've all heard of Socrates, right? So Socrates was very against these things called books. He thought they were so dangerous for the human mind to be weakened. If we have the ability to write things down and to capture them, reprint them, share books, then we have the opportunity for our minds to be weakened because we no longer rely on our memory. So it's kind of a funny thing how over time education just changed based on our tools, what's available to us. And I will say there is a mom on YouTube that many of us follow, Farmhouse on Boone. I'm sure some of you have heard her. And she really looks into homesteading and this historical way of living that was maybe healthier than our way of living now. That's her argument. When you live on a farm and you do farm chores and you're eating the food that you are literally raising and creating yourself as a family, that's healthier. And she said it's funny because everyone's so busy and everyone's running out of time. But it's because you have so much time that you're filling it with things like Instagram posts or watching things on YouTube, because you have running water now and you have lights now and you do not sew your own clothes and you have healthy vitamins available to you. We have so much time when we're homeschooling that we typically use it up for all of this stuff because we're not comfortable having it and not exhausting every single thing. I would say if you could maybe take a step back and look at the value in your homeschooling of how far you can get with a healthy mom. And here's how you do it. Think of a spotlight, okay, on the stage. It's this huge light. I mean, this thing is really big. I have a spotlight right here for this Zoom call. I mean, it's bigger than my arms. I can't really do it justice. Now, a spotlight is going to give light to everything. I would argue that if you work on mom's healthy habits and the marriage, and these two things are really doing well, then the time you have left over for your homeschooling is not left over. It's hyper focused like a laser. So think of a laser light, how powerful and strong a laser is. When you're taking care of mom's health, and she's very, very healthy, and we're taking care of giving the attention to the marriage it's due, then the time we have after that, it's kind of like A plus B equals C. That time is going to be very, very precious, and you're going to use it well. You don't have to fill up everything here with academic. So I'm showing you a blank page, but normally what I do, and I do this with 9 kids. So I know if I could do it with 9 kids who are ages 1 to 17, and the 17-year-old has graduated from high school. If I can do it with 9 kids, then I know anyone can do this if they want to. I fill up my calendar with me and dad. And I bring the kids along for the ride. And I will argue that it's much more interesting than sitting here and doing this all day. So that's just one perspective, because that is a question that I did get for this Zoom call. How are you able to do this? And they were pointing the finger at me. If you are, I'm 42, I have 9 kids, and I'm still alive. How can you do that? Well, I know how important it is for me to be healthy and happy and not be cranky. And I know that if I don't have a marriage, I don't have a homeschool. And all of those things that adults do together are a little more interesting than what's in the first grade reader. So whatever I'm reading, I will use my oldest as an example, and then we're going to move on. My oldest daughter, when I was first homeschooling her, brought me so much joy and so many tears, because it was, and she's laughing. She's my moderator right now in the chat, by the way. She refused to read. She kind of was so good at keeping her ability to herself that it was so difficult for me to tell, like, do you have a diagnosis? Do I need to take you in for therapy? Because if she needed the help, I wanted to get her the help. Well, eventually the iPhone came along. And because I would constantly check in with my mother-in-law, she would be over my shoulder, and there was nothing inappropriate there. And I wasn't really private about it. I would just type a sentence to grandma, and I would send grandma the sentence. This child learned how to read so fast, let me tell you. And historically, all of my kids have learned to fly. We have this program. Some of you have this, right? All about reading and all about spelling. I am very, very careful when I text somebody or I email somebody, because my kids are looking over my shoulder and I want them to get the proper grammar and the proper capitalization and the proper spelling, because there is nothing like looking over mom's shoulder when she's talking to another adult that teaches that kid, oh,
You read really fast.
my kids learn how to read so fast because the adults, go through the text messages so fast. So it's really funny. I hope you're laughing right now. It's really funny how when adults are doing things, children are eavesdropping, and it's way more interesting. It's almost like a conversation they're not supposed to be a part of. But again, when I'm talking to grandma about a recipe, okay, you can read that. And then I have these aha moments like, oh, you read that. You can read. So that happened with my first. It's happening right now again. I just realized it with my son, who is number 6.
Joseph?
Yeah. And yeah, and he's doing it to his big sister, because she's, working full time now that she's graduated from high school. And it's just so funny. It's so funny how fast the kids can read and jump around through their little homeschooling achievements just by being in a family when the adults are doing adult things. And of course, there's nothing inappropriate that the kids can't learn from, but it's just so much more interesting to them to try to jump up to the level where mom and dad are, especially people who like get their own cell phones. They just think it's fascinating. That's a little plug there for why cell phones are not all bad. But in the end, don't forget that there's no homeschooling without your marriage. Before we jump off, because we've always almost reached our hour, I just want to say thank you sincerely. I have a lot of fun, especially at my church. In the bathroom is the number one place where I get stopped. People will see me, they will see my kids, they will see that, that I'm not upset. Like sometimes kids do kid things, and then you just you roll with it. And that peace of mind is really, I think, what my parents taught me. And I want to give my parents the credit for that by their adoption. Their adoption of my mom's sister, who they raised like a sibling to me, because it kind of gives you that feeling like not everything in life is a problem that needs to be solved. sometimes just sitting with a little bit of peace and joy and knowing that your children are like puppies in a box. They're not trying to ruin your house. They're not trying to give you gray hair. They're just kids doing kid things. So if you can stay really calm and you know what to do when something happens that maybe they shouldn't do right now, then it'll give you all the peace of mind in the whole wide world. So that not only applies to your homeschooling, but to your parenting. So I sincerely thank you for jumping on this call with me. The greatest compliment that you can give me is to share. If you have my website, especially if you have a friend or you know someone who's new to homeschooling, word of mouth is the greatest compliment that I can receive. Before we jump off the call, the last thing I want to share with you is this. So if any of what I said during this call is something you want more of, yes, I can teach you how. At my website for the next hour, I will discount everything 25% as a thank you to you. Promote their potential. I'll start here if you want to look at the mouse. Promote their potential is a workshop that I'm doing next month. So the next Zoom call is a workshop, and it is for parents who have kids who are student athletes, looking for internships, looking for scholarships. How do you promote your student and do this for your student in ways that are better than the traditional ways? What do you not do? And we have so much that we could talk about in both. This is a 90-minute workshop. So if you know anyone who's homeschooling, who wants to get their kids into college, we have kids around us who want to get into very prestigious schools. And the way we got into those schools, the way the public schools are getting those kids into those schools, the way you're getting internships now, there are so many ways to set the homeschoolers way above the competition. It's almost silly that people don't do it. And then I realize, okay, I think they don't know how. We have that experience because my husband has been, his career started in the Silicon Valley and he's been in it longer than we've been married. So there are a lot of things that we know that work. And especially for the student athletes, when you have those scouts looking at your student athletes, the apps are about $10,000, just the app to put your kid's name on a list for scouts to look at. You don't need to do that anymore. There are a lot of other things that you can do. So this is a workshop for parents who want to, like I said, promote their potential. For the parents who have girls who are in high school who want to get a job, I'll use my daughter Catherine, for example. There are ways that you can use a babysitting business just like you would if you were an entrepreneur. So my daughter Catherine, she's always been homeschooled and she was able to start babysitting at a very young age. And so I said, okay, let's see, if you want to babysit, that's fine. It's really common for girls. Well, what isn't common is to treat it like you're a business owner. So there used to be a course for homeschool kids on how to start businesses. And that course now is still very good. The core message, the application, no, it it's so much better now. It's so much better. So Catherine has earned for herself tens of thousands of dollars just from babysitting and saving her money as a full-time student. She's not even 18 yet. So on her 18th birthday, she has positioned herself as a homeschool student to open up a Roth IRA. And I know that's something that all parents want for their kids. So at my website, this workshop is going to be discounted for you for the next hour. And it's something that I can teach you. If you want to know how did we do it, how are we doing with other clients, then that's the workshop you want to join. It is next month. It's in September. Winning strategies is really for the mom if she is homeschooling and her husband said yes, but he is not 100% on board. So winning strategies is a package of sessions where we can work one-on-one to not only make him feel better, but to bring the marriage together to show you that this is a winning recipe for your kids and for your marriage. And sometimes that takes a little bit of, planning that is very specific to you. Homeschool SOS is something for parents who want a daily touch. So anyone who wants access to me every single day, this is for you. Homeschool SOS is just support on schedule. So we use the Voxer app. The Voxer app is like a walkie-talkie app. where you and I talk to each other every single day, Monday through Friday. This is going to help you if you know that you have critics, especially like in-laws or other people who are close to you who are really critical, who are keeping you up at night, or like, sometimes you are your worst critic. I do have a client that she pulled her kids out of private school. She didn't feel like the private school was worth the money and the time anymore. But she was so worried about homeschooling, and her kids are very brilliant. And her husband is her number one fan. And she does not feel like what she's doing, her own gut instinct doesn't make her comfortable. So she's like that homeschool SOS mom that every day I need to talk to every day so that, you can tell me that you're doing a good job, or if something isn't working, you immediately fix it and you do not wait for it to fester or create resentment in the marriage, because that's like the number one thing. Ultimately, we want to be here because we know that mom and dad and kids is the best thing for the whole wide world. The family is the best thing for the whole world. And if homeschooling is the way that you want to raise your kids, then we want to do that too. I'm going to put in my Instagram story. Is it there? Do you know, Kevin?
It is not.
Okay, so I'll show you here. I'm going to put it in my Instagram story. This is just going to show you what it looks like in Instagram and Facebook. If you follow me there, this is the little flyer. It's showing you all these three. And like I said, they'll be available at my website, which is on here for the next hour. If there are any questions that I didn't answer, just send me a message. I'm always here. Okay, bye y'all.